You're looking at the sights and sounds of New York City all around us. We're coming to you from the WNET studios at Lincoln Center. This is One on One. I'm Steve Adubato, and you're about to meet an author of a wonderful book called The New Small. He is Phil Simon. Good to see you, Phil.
Steve, nice to meet you.
What is The New Small?
In short, it's about a new breed of small businesses really harnessing the power of emerging technologies.
Small business.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so someone says, okay, there have been a million books written on small business. This is different. How?
Well, I can't say that I've read a million books on small businesses, but I'm unaware of one that combines the sort of storytelling of someone like a Malcolm Gladwell, not to put myself in that category, with sort of practical lessons on how you use technologies, and really with a hands-on approach provides a lot of, I think, valuable tips for businesses.
Well, since you're talking about tips and tipping points, if you will, then be specific. Give us a concrete example. We talked about customer service.
Sure.
Both of us are fascinated by customer service. Small business, technology, customer service. Go ahead.
Sure, let's rock. There's a term called customer rescue that a lot of people have heard of.
Customer rescue.
Rescue, right. So there's a social customer out there. How do you get that person and turn him or her from sort of a negative Nelly to an advocate? And there's a great story in the book by a guy named Chef Tony. He runs a restaurant down in Maryland. He's got one of my favorite quotes in the whole book. There are two parts of my brain, food and technology, and I spend all my time thinking about how I can put the two together. So maybe 6, 7 months ago, a guy blogs that he went to his restaurant and he had a bad experience, bad service, bad meal, whatever. So Tony's Google alerts picks it up. Tony tracks the guy down, sends him an email, said, hey, I'd love to talk about it. Long story short, the guy comes back in, has a better meal at his restaurant, and Tony turns him into an advocate. The guy amends his blog post and is now out there telling people about Chef Tony's. So it's a great story.
So that's interesting. Now, you're talking a lot about technology, but let's talk about social media, social technology. A lot of people will say, well, I already do it. I have Twitter and I'm on Facebook. It's not enough. It may not even be helpful.
Well, it's all about content, right? Chris Brogan, the guy who's writing the foreword, made a great point on ABC News a couple months ago. And he said, you don't watch TV for the commercials and you don't read the newspaper or magazines for the ads. People really want content. So whether you're blogging or putting Facebook updates, no one wants to hear, hey, Steve, here are the 10 reasons you ought to buy my book. They want to hear me talking about an issue. And if they want more, then they buy the book. They use me as a consultant, hire me as a speaker, whatever. So it really is all about content. That's what keeps people coming back, not 150 updates on the reasons they ought to use your company. That just gets dry.
What's up with, again, I don't want to cast or paint with a very broad brush, but here's my question about big business. Why have so many larger businesses missed the boat on this?
On social media or emerging technologies in general?
Both.
Oh, gosh, that's a big subject that I discussed in the book. Long story short, even if a large business recognizes the need for change, in many cases they're encumbered by their own internal obstacles, politics, bad technology, internal factions fighting, contracts in some cases. Small businesses, and this is really the central theme of the book, are in an advantageous spot. It's actually better to be small. From a technology standpoint, they can get these sort of industrial grade technologies that 15 years ago when I got into the field weren't available to them, and they're sort of lacking all that internal stuff that gets in the way. As to why they miss them, many people have written many books about the problems inherent in big companies, and it certainly touches upon them. But the book isn't so much anti-big as it is pro-small.
When was it clear to you that you needed and wanted to write this book?
Earlier this year, I remember at the Chamber of Commerce, I gave a talk to other technology professionals about social media, and they just kept asking me questions. We were supposed to go for 30 minutes. We went for 90. And I said to myself, these are people who work in a technology capacity, and they have fundamental questions. What does that say about the people at my local tennis shop? Because when I'd get my racket restrung, they'd ask me, hey, Phil, what do you think about Facebook? We probably don't need a proper website, right? We have a Facebook page. And I'm thinking to myself, you really need both. So it was just obvious to me that because of the economy, cutbacks, the rapid pace of technological change, a lot of people just don't know what I know. So I figured, why not hopefully write a book that would help them understand how they can use these technologies.
But the other thing is about how you put the book out, Phil, because the process by which you put the book out is fascinating, because I've been fortunate enough to write a few books, and it's a pretty traditional approach, you know, Rutgers University Press, before that Simon & Schuster, pretty traditional, if you will, publishers. You did not go that route.
Not for this one. My other two publishers, Cengage and Wiley, I think were interested in the book, but we had a difference of opinion with regard to how much the book ought to cost, as well as when the book ought to come out. So I said to myself, why don't I practice what I preach? I have a fairly decent social media presence, why not take advantage of them? So I used a site called Kickstarter.com.
Kickstarter.com. Go ahead.
And essentially, it's a site that allows you to fund a project, whether you're an artist like an opera singer, or if you're a musician or writer, in my case, you can put something out there and try to raise funds for it. So I did, and I raised enough money to cover most of the costs of publishing it, and there you go.
What you did, the model you used to put this book out, to publish this book, are people watching right now saying, hey, I can do that? Can they do that?
Sure. I'm certainly not the first author to go on Kickstarter. I found out about it because Seth Godin, who's, as you know, a very popular author, had mentioned it on a podcast. I actually went to the site and said, let me give it a shot. And the way it works, if you're able to fund your project, then less the 5% that the Kickstarter site gets, you collect the money and then you can put it towards the project. And the whole thing's run through Amazon. So in terms of credibility, no one's saying, hey, who is this shifty guy? It's all very prim and proper.
Before I let you out of here, one concrete, solid, compelling example of a small business getting it right.
Oh gosh,
Pick one.
there's so many of them, but one of the most amazing stories in the book is probably Dodo Case. They make iPad cases. They've got 4 employees and over $1 million in revenue, and they were able to sustain that level of success by really using technologies in an interesting way, up to and including social media. It's fascinating for me that a company with 4 employees can have that much in revenue, and they're still growing.
The name of the book is The New Small. The author is Phil Simon. Do yourself a favor. There it is. Go out and get it, and it's going to make a difference. Appreciate it, Phil. Great job.
Thanks.
We are coming to you from the WNET studios at Lincoln Center. I'm Steve Adubato. This is One on One, and I promise you another compelling, fascinating interview right after this. We'll be right back. Thank you, Phil.
Oh, thank you.
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org and visit us online at oneonone.org.